and I don't know what his actual number is up to.
Welcome back to another edition of Dream Up on KBF 88.3 FM in Little Rock, but nationally syndicated and internationally streamed. It's the show where everyone has a story of how they achieved their dream, whether they're celebrities, experts, or average Joes and Janes. This week, one of our very special guests is a king of comedy with over 100 million views on the internet. Give it up for Jeff Allen.
Yay! I love it. One of my good friends, and what a great, honestly, in my opinion, one of the greatest comedians. He's so underrated, to be honest. He's just fabulous.
I'm looking forward to showing more people that may not be aware of him, introducing him. He is a fantastic comic, and we've had him as a guest on our old show in LA. So very excited to have him back.
Yeah, and he's going to be performing in Lowell, Arkansas, October 28th to the 30th there at the Grove Comedy Club. So it's just so awesome. So awesome. Love it.
Well, as always, I'm one of your hosts, Carl Double Portion Kozlowski, because I'm supersized and want a double portion of blessings from the Lord. And with me from Los Angeles is...
I want to go back to your nickname, Carl. You ever just go to the drive-through and just go, supersize it, please, because I'm double portion.
I've worn, we have special baseball jerseys for our old show, Man Up, and yes, mine says double portion on it. And I have worn it numerous times to fast food restaurants when ordering. And they look at me funny every single time.
Real quickly, all-time favorite fast food drive-through, what is it for you?
Oh man, I'd say Sonic. Sonic rules.
Sonic is pretty good. Sonic is pretty good.
How about you?
In-N-Out protein style burger was really good. And the Jack in the Box, 2 tacos for $1.99. It's got to be after 2 a.m.
Yeah,
because they're just even the shell is soggy from the grease. It's just great. It's just great.
I don't know. I gave up on Jack in the Box a couple of years back when they started bragging about how their burgers had buttery Jack on them. I was like, I don't know. That was an actual flavor. Yeah, of course, they're talking about cheese, folks. Cheese.
Yes.
Anyways.
Well, hey, I'm Ron, the mirthful married man Pearson. It's just great to see you again, Carl, and I'm loving it. And in my life, I don't know if I've told you this, I've been actually officially diagnosed, finally in my older years, but officially diagnosed with ADHD.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. It stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which for me, it stands for another dang hell of a day is what it really stands for. I actually had to fill out this questionnaire about my diagnosis, and it says, do you think ADHD causes anxiety? And I'm like, I don't think ADHD causes anxiety. I know ADHD causes anxiety. In my family, these poor people have to deal with me every day. Oh my gosh. They say it's a neurological disorder. Well, disorder makes sense. Just look at my office, duh. Carl, I watch episodes of Extreme Hoarders and I'm like, I like your filing system. Piles. Makes sense. How many people can relate? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone?
Yeah.
Just me? Really?
Oh no! I mean, you see my old apartment. I was a candidate for that show.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, yeah, that was weird. I was last year when I was unemployed. I watched Extreme Hoarders episodes a lot on cable and my mom finally was like, "Yeah, maybe you're getting too many ideas from this rather than." Looking at it as a bad thing.
Yeah. Can't you watch like Extreme Home Makeover instead?
Yeah, I always loved it when they had to like have some expert come in and climb the mountain of trash to the little hole that like led to the next room.
Some of the people actually have pathways, like it's like a pathway through everything to get, but the reason, at least for me, is that everything that I keep has I know it and I can't lose it because my mind's bouncing around. So if you put it away and it's not labeled, it's out of sight, out of mind, and that thought will never get back to my head again. So anyway, but enough about my ADHD. Let's get on to the best thing of the day, the quote of the day, Carl. The quote
Sure,
of the day.
absolutely.
The quote of the day is from a guy named Dave Ramsey, who is, I like to consider myself a poor man's Dave Ramsey, in the sense that I came from, I was a street performer and have built my way up to quite a little empire of real estate through show business, which is bizarre. And by the way, Carl, I'm a juggler. I was once fourth best juggler in the world. I had a world
Yeah.
record as a juggler. And if you look in the circus hierarchy, it's clowns are the bottom, jugglers are barely above them, and all the other circus acts are above. So even in the circus, I'm the bottom rung. But
Wow.
I came to Los Angeles as a street performer and have just really built up quite a little setup just by following good economic principles, and it's been amazing. So I kind of look up to Dave Ramsey, and I love this quote Dave has here. Quote of the day is, "Work is doing it, discipline is doing it every day, diligence is doing it very well every day." Isn't that interesting? What
Yeah.
do you take on that, Carl?
Well, I mean, I think that it's that old idea that practice makes perfect, perhaps, like this is just a more specific thing, like drawing that principle that we get as kids drilled into us is a good reminder, and putting it into perspective from an adult point of view, thus being more, detailed about.
Yeah,
You
I
know, the
think it goes a
steps to
little
that.
deeper than that. The book of Proverbs is really big on the word diligence. It's really big on the word diligence. And I've never seen anybody break it down the way he does here. Work is doing it. Hey, I got it over with. It's done. Boom. Right. Discipline is doing it every day. Hey, I got it done and I do it every day. And by the way, discipline will get you really a long way in life. Right.
Yeah.
So getting it done every day is amazing. Diligence is doing it well every day, which means you're giving attention to detail. So you're not just skimming over it, you're making it top priority and focused on it. So I don't know, that's what I get out of that. And I wish you could add a little more to it, Carl.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I mean, that's
Well, maybe if you were a little more diligent.
exactly. There you go. Yeah.
You are very diligent in so many areas of your life. Like what's funny to me, like I've had hundreds of newspaper articles written about me over the years as a performer, but you by far were the best writer that I've had that encapsulated what my story is succinctly and from the right angle. And you did that over lunch. We had lunch together and you just listened and you weren't really taking many notes. And then you wrote the story. It's like, how did he do that? You're just, so you've obviously practiced diligence in being a writer, and
Yeah. I mean, I'd say, if you do something, I've done it thousands of times over many years, and it becomes second nature. Like I'm doing it now. I'm doing some PR for young comics that are looking to get some good publicity written about them. And I've had like 3 or 4 that I've worked with recently, and every one of them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, how did you take that 10-15 minute conversation and turn it into something that was, like a very succinct, detailed look at their life?" So
yeah, you're
yeah,
amazing at that, buddy. You're amazing at that. So, well,
thanks.
congratulations on your diligence.
Well, I
You
think that
do it
we need to
well
be.
every day. So,
Well, thanks. Well, I say let's get diligent about some news. So
yeah.
every week we love to share stories of dreams achieved or dreams that failed. And so now the news. Okay, so our first story, this is one that's really quite special. It's basically John Hinckley Jr. famously shot President Reagan in an assassination attempt while trying to impress Jodie Foster in 1981. He's been held in mental facilities ever since, but he's getting paroled next June. So he's taken to celebrating through music, and he's recorded 10 songs and put them on Spotify. And the shocking thing to me is they're actually pretty good, I have to say. I think he might have a shot at success,
That's
maybe
crazy.
even of going #1 with a bullet. Here's
Oh,
a few
God.
seconds, guys. And yeah, my speaker fell over, folks. Sorry. but I want to play just a split second of John Hinckley's greatest hits, folks. Listen to this. Oh boy. Oh. Little country action.
Fortunes, I don't need to have you. You don't ask that much of me. All I gotta do is hold you. 'Cause we have got that chemistry.
Yeah, there
That's
you
pretty
go, John
catchy,
Hinckley
actually.
Jr. It's actually pretty good. It kind of reminds me of Ringo Starr's Act Naturally, but you know, the guy,
Yeah.
there's 10 songs, and I hate to say, I don't know if this is reflective that something's wrong with me, but I was singing along to the choruses like the second time I listened. I actually played it a couple of times through to get used to it. And you know, the guy's got talent, but I think it says a lot about how music was his therapy and helped him to recover to the point where he could finally be paroled. And I think that I actually think this is pretty good that he came up with all the songs have a positive message. A lot of them are about overcoming things that he went through in his past and saying, hey, I went through a lot, but I'm here and I want to be happy and I have a right to, you know, have a life. And you know, what do you think, Ron?
Well, I think first of all, he did the whole thing over the love of a woman, Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
The power of the love of a woman, man, it causes people. So I don't know how in his mind he got to the point of, well, then I'll kill the president and she'll notice. But isn't it interesting? John Hinckley Jr. Why is it the only people with three names assassinate famous people? John Hinckley
Yeah.
Jr., Lee Harvey Oswald, John Wilkes Booth, James
David
Earl
Chapman.
Ray.
Yeah.
Or you have to repeat your name twice, Sirhan Sirhan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The assassin's so nice they named him twice.
Yes. You know what's so interesting? Actually, my mother-in-law saw John F. Kennedy get assassinated. She was about 60 yards from him when he was shot.
No way.
And yeah, seriously. And she was in high school at the time. I think she was like a freshman. And she went back to the school and went to the principal and said, the president's been shot. And he said, stop lying, Lunan, go back to class. Because word traveled so slow back then that no
Wow.
one even knew, but she saw it. She was actually supposed to be on the grassy knoll, but her friend got her a spot on the balcony of the courthouse. So she was sitting on the balcony of the courthouse about 60 yards away.
Wow.
Crazy. And you know what's else funny? My manager managed me for 13 years. He's passed away now, but he was friends with Jack Ruby.
Oh my gosh.
Which is interesting, right? And my other friend, a cameraman on several TV shows I worked on, was the filmer of the assassination of Robert Kennedy. So I am 1 degree of separation from the entire Kennedy assassination terms.
Oh my
Isn't that
gosh.
crazy?
Yeah. Well, you're like you need to be in the Warren Commission report, you know.
Yes.
Part 2.
Part
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
so bizarre how these people do forms of art, you know. Hitler has paintings. He was a painter, and he has people still sell them these days. It's very
They do.
weird.
Oh God.
John Wayne Gacy, do you remember the
Yeah,
mass
cloud
murder?
paintings, nice ones.
Right. Charles
Yeah.
Manson did art, right?
He had music too, just like Hinckley, but his music, Manson's music was ugly and nasty and creepy.
Yeah.
And like I said, Hinckley's are all like shockingly upbeat and positive. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
for him.
There's something about mental illness and art. And I don't know what. Oh, hey, can you hold on a second? I'm in a bidding war on eBay. Hold on. Oh, excellent. I think I just might have won Hunter Biden's painting right there. I think I just got a Hunter Biden painting.
Yeah, a lot of craft goes into those, I tell you.
Yes.
Yeah, blow some paint out of a tube, and then there's your painting. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Hey,
They showed on
well,
Fox.
it's funny. He did a lot of other things up the tube before. Now he blows the paint out of the tube.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
hey,
they said on Fox this week that they were showing that Degas and Monet sold their world-class centuries appreciated paintings for like $700,000 each recently. And meanwhile, Hunter Biden like blows paint through a tube and makes a splattery mess, and he's selling for $500,000. It's just amazing.
You know what? Hey, I guess art is in the eye of the beholder. Apparently, a lot of the beholders are blind. But
Yeah,
getting back to Hinckley, though, he's actually putting his time into constructive things. And, it's obvious he had mental illness, right? But I'm just hoping and praying he can have a productive life. You can actually, I think God's redemptive service, you can come back from anything. We have a friend who is in a state hospital currently. Mental illness caused him to commit murder, and he was guilt by reason of insanity, but he's improving, and I hope and pray that he can make a comeback in life. I talk to him occasionally, and I'm very proud of the recovery he's made. And look, I just crazy things happen. Look at in the Bible, King David and Moses were both murderers.
yeah,
And look what they did in life. There is a comeback, right?
yeah. Well, I think the lesson here is go out and kill people, and then no kidding.
No, no, you
No,
can't even say that, Carl.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, you're right. You're right. Anyways, no, but you're right that redemption is possible for everyone. It's offered by God, and I went through much. Thankfully, I didn't hurt anybody, but I was had honest about this elsewhere. So I'll just say I had a mental breakdown basically at the start of 2020, and I and then took me about a year to really get out of my funk after that. But I wound up getting a job, becoming a hit on TikTok through making videos at Walmart where I work. And I drive. I kicked an 18-year sleep disorder, got my own killer apartment that's way better than anything I ever had in LA, got a girlfriend. And so, my whole life is like turned around completely. And I didn't expect any of that, after what I went through.
So let's just stop right there for a second, because what's interesting is you're one of the most talented writers I've ever met. You're a great guy. You're a good friend. And look, the things holding you back were levels of we all have things. I have ADHD. You have, you had
I had bipolar and anxiety disorder.
and anxiety, and narcolepsy was on top of that.
Yeah.
So, it's how do we get through life? And you're really starting to crush it in so many ways. You're doing PR, you're still reviewing. You've been a national movie reviewer for years.
Yeah.
And being a narcoleptic and a movie reviewer, how did you not fall asleep in the movies? How do you even know what to write about when it's over?
Well, my joke about that was that at least I never give away the endings to the movies because I never make it to the endings. And then my boss told me to rate movies on 1 to 4 snores, not stars. So, yeah,
That's
I
great.
have a challenge today. I'm going to see 2 movies. I'm seeing a cartoon called Ron's Gone Wrong, which is not about Ron.
Thank you.
Then I'm seeing Dune after that.
Yeah.
And that's like 2.5 hours. So my girlfriend's like, you better stay awake. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens. It's still an issue sometimes in the movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next story,
All right.
my friend.
Our next story, and which will have to be our final story, is one that I'm walking myself into a barrage of insults from Ron, no doubt, but is the story about how a 700-pound man who was bedbound for 5 years, he dropped 260 pounds in 8 months, and then managed to get down on one knee to propose to his girlfriend, who inspired his weight loss. And this guy, he lives in Portland, Oregon, and he was named Matt Entisney. And he was completely a disaster, was on oxygen 24 hours a day because he was so fat. And then he wound up starting to lose weight because he got fed up at age 40, decided time to get out of this mess. And as he lost weight, he was posting about it online. And the woman who now became his fiance, she found his story online, was inspired by him, and just wrote him a note saying, keep it up. And he thought she was beautiful. And they struck up a correspondence. And then he wound up, like I said, losing 260 pounds. And she happened to live near him. And the next thing you know, they're like becoming a couple and getting married in March. I think that's pretty amazing.
That is amazing. He lost that. I did the math on that. It turns out he lost over a pound a day.
Wow.
That is amazing. What are you eating antimatter? How
Yeah.
does that happen? And you know, the girl's like, yeah, mom, I'm going to marry him. On the upside, he's probably never going to be a cheater.
Yeah.
He's also just, when you break down the whole story, this guy's a goal setter, right? He's a goal
Sure.
setter, and it's important to have achievable goals. His was pretty achievable. Okay, in 8 months, I'm going to get down on one knee. He probably needed a team of people to help him back up, but he could get
I
down.
was gonna say, yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, they didn't say if he made it back up, but
Yeah. He's probably an emotionally fragile guy. I can't imagine getting to that weight and not having issues. We all have issues, unfortunately.
yeah.
But could you imagine if she would have said no?
Oh, yeah.
He would have had Domino's on speed dial. Back to the food. Can you imagine? By the way, when this guy announced he went on a diet, can you imagine how much money the Postmates driver lost that month? He was like, no, that guy was pissed.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, he lost over a third of his body weight.
Yeah, 280 pounds, quite an achievement, but you still can't tell the difference on his before and after pics.
I know, when you're that big, it's like a long way to go before you actually can tell the results.
Hey, the love of a woman can change many things. Like our story before, the love of a woman causes great achievements, and good kudos to that guy.
Well, in
Go
this case,
for
the
it, and-
achievement is positive. I mean,
Yeah.
in Hinckley's case, not so positive.
Yeah, and apparently Subway's looking for a new spokesperson, so I'd go after that, brother.
There you go.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think it's time that we get to our guest, folks. So we're very excited to have him, our guest of the week. So Ron, tell us about our guest.
Well, I've had the honor of making 2 comedy specials with Jeff. And several actual national tours with him as part of the Apostles of Comedy. He now has over 200 million aggregate hits on his comedy. He's one of the top all-time dry bar acts. And to be honest, one of the best acts I've ever worked with. It was an honor being on stage with him all the time. I'm not joking when I say that. That's not hyperbole. I would love sitting on stage next to him going, man, look at the way he crafted that. You're just a great comic. He's also coming to the Grove Comedy Club in Lowell, Arkansas, October 28th to 30th. Get your tickets. You're not going to want to miss him. And we're lucky to have him today because you're on tour in Pennsylvania right now. You're on a, even with COVID, you're one of the few guys still getting out there and touring. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jeff Allen to the show.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us, Jeffy.
thanks for having me. I'm in my car because they won't let me in a hotel room because thanks to our economic policies, every hotel has a desk clerk and then one maid. So basically, that's the extent of the employees. So I'm hoping to get in by midnight tonight, and then I'll be able to get a couple hours before I have to leave. So
Yeah.
I'm ready to start cleaning my own rooms. I'm ready to start volunteering just to go up and clean my own room. So
You were just out in California here with me, and you had a great show. You and I and the great Robert G. Lee hung at the club.
Yeah.
And it was you, Robert, and Jay Leno were on the bill.
Jay Leno, yeah, one of my heroes. I love Jay.
He opened
First
for
saw him
you.
in 1979 when I had just started in comedy. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. So let's just go back to your great comedy history, buddy. You grew up in Illinois, Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago. You know, it's the south side of Chicago. Yeah, suburbs.
No,
Um,
not rough.
No, no. A rough suburban childhood. You know, I
Okay.
wanted Nikes, and my parents got me Reeboks. You know, life was hell. You know,
So
drive-by
how-
tauntings. I heard somebody say once, yeah, in suburban America, you used to have drive-by tauntings. That was basically it.
Well, comics tend to we tend to have pretty sharp tongues. You know, we don't cut with our fists, we cut with our mouth, right?
Oh. Absolutely. I've said that if I wound up in the military, I'd have to grab a general and tell him, don't tell me anything you don't want the other side to know, because I'll break pretty quick. They'll just threaten me. I'll just rip out your fingernails. Oh, wow. Wow, what do you need to know? You know, I know where the mess hall is. That's all they ever told me. So, you know, but yeah, I'm not cut out for warfare, you know, but you're right. I can get a little snotty.
Well, all of us can that are comics. I think it's just our weapon is our tongue. I have a friend who had a very, very mild act. It was kind of a bunch of one-liners and prop jokes. And if somebody heckled him from the audience, he would go, wait a minute, and he'd pull out a prop book that said heckler lines, and he would open it up and he'd say something like, oh, be quiet, smarty pants, and then close it, and then it would be attached to a cord that would shoot back. And so it's obviously these dumb, innocuous lines. But this guy heckled him. He kept using those dumb lines against him. And after the show, the guy wants to fight him. So the guy punches him in the face, and he says another line back to him instead of punching back. And the guy punches him again, and he says another line. So that's literally just used his words to cut. But obviously it hurt the guy, but he's not even a harmful comic, you know. One of my favorite lines of his was, what's the difference between Target and Walmart?
What?
At Target, you can beat your kids and no one cares. At Walmart, you can beat someone else's kids and no one cares. So
I've seen it happen. I work at Walmart.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Carl, not only Jeff, Carl is one of the best. He's a great film critic. He's a great writer. He's written for so many things, but he's moved back to Arkansas, and he's doing PR and writing, doing that. But he also just got a job at Walmart, so he's doing
the pinnacle.
Yes.
Well,
that's actually good. Yeah.
That's my fallback, to be a greeter, you know. So
yeah.
Carl was a greeter for like
a day.
Not even a day. They moved him up immediately. They saw his talent, said, you're out of here. You're on your way up the totem.
Yes, I was cashier on day 2. Woo. So, but
yeah,
I love it there. So, hey.
I'd probably get fired, because I'd look at the way people are dressed and ask them, is there a mirror in your home at all? Do you have anybody in your life that cares about you at all?
What I'm fascinated by is a lot of our customers have just outrageous tattoos in the craziest of body places. And I'm always like having to hold my tongue to keep from asking, like, what do you do for a living? I'm like dying to know. How do these people ever get a job when they have, like, you know, an unintelligible word written across their eyebrows, for instance? I can't even read what it says, but good job. You put it in a good place.
Yeah.
Well, it's some Asian symbol for hire me. That's what that is. You know?
Exactly.
Carl does comedy because he's been a comic. So he uses the line of people buying stuff to be his audience. So he's got a captive audience every day.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
So,
great.
Jeff, how did you know you were funny? Like, what did you want to do when you were a kid growing up? What
Played baseball. That's what I learned.
You were a baseball player. What position did you play?
It was interesting. I was always an infielder until I got to junior year in high school at varsity. And we had an all-conference shortstop. and a all conference third baseman that were coming back as seniors. So I knew I wouldn't play on the infield. So I said, you can put me anywhere you want. I just want to play. So they put me at first base, which I'd never played before. And I caught a ground ball one game and I ran over and I tried to tap the base 4 or 5 times, missed it, and the guy was safe.
Oh, geez.
So anyway, the coach calls timeout. He walks out very calmly, says, I didn't know we had to practice that. So when we get back on Monday, I'll lay a pillow on the ground and you can practice tapping the pillow with your foot. So we got in the locker room that day and he says, have you done anything else? I was hitting about 380 something. So I was
Wow.
So anyway, he says, can you do anything else? I said, I caught a little in Little League. I was a catcher. And it was like putting a duck to water. I loved catching. As with ADD, you're in on every pitch, every play, and you're a field general. I had a big mouth and I was cocky. So it was a good fit. And I had some success there and dropped out of college. Didn't know you had to go to class. Just told him. And it's funny, the freshman year I took like remedial classes because the coach knew I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to play ball.
Right.
And, anyway, sophomore year, for whatever reason, I think Satan invaded my skull and said, you need an education. So I took, advanced classes, philosophy. And I mean, I have no idea. And it's interesting. I never read a book. I never went to class. So I never read a book in philosophy. And I've since read everything on the syllabus for my philosophy class. It was like 20 years later, but I finally did get through the class and I read it, but I was in my sophomore year. So, and Alan Watts, by the way, talked about cashless society back in the 60s. He wrote about, we're just going to eventually, you'll put a card into a machine and it'll take your money out or your money back. And that was like 1968 or something. He had one of the best lines I ever heard. He said about people talk about what is it, animal rights, and he said, well, plants are living, breathing things too. I guess they just don't make a lot of noise when you bite into them. I thought that was cool. I thought, that was one of those. Yeah, they're fine. They're living until you rip them from the ground.
So it's so philosophy. So is comedy kind of philosophy in a way? I mean, you're
I think it's more
comedy out.
therapy. I think in my end, it's more therapy. I think I've always said I work inside out.
What does
I
that
can
mean?
observe.
Define inside out, Jeff.
Well, what's going on inside me, and then those closest to me. So I talk a lot about my wife, my kids, my grandkids now, and I do make observations. We were talking a little bit, like for instance, here's a simple, and again, what I don't like about social commentary is it has a short shelf life. But I'm watching Joe Biden, our president, the other night speak on Fox. He was going to talk about his Build Back Better plan. And 20 minutes into it, he was still on anecdotes from 1962. He was just kind of rambling, And then he finally got to Build Back Better, and he said something about he was going to give billions of dollars to Amtrak, the railroad company. And I thought, great, that's perfect. So then maybe he'll bail out those transistor radio factories that went under too, And hey, how about getting some high speed things to those fax machines, some little fiber optics, get those faxes working a little quicker too, So anyway, it's just like an observation that I make. And I did it last night. I was in Wilmington, his home state, and they laughed and applauded. But it has a short shelf life.
Well, it's interesting. Just to dissect comedy, right? As a comedy writer, Carl, you've done comedy.
Yeah.
You're a writer. Basically, it's looking at what everyone sees from a different way, or being able to say and articulate what people might be thinking but haven't put in succinctly into words. What is it that strikes you when you want to do a new, not a joke, but a new piece? When what tips
well,
you off?
I start with what I call a truth. There's a truth to it. For instance, I'm writing some stuff now about the differences in the generations of going to the doctor. before Google, parents weren't actually doctors. Now everybody's a doctor,
Right.
So what do you think about, it's like I feel sorry for the doctors. These kids come brought in, what made you think using a garden hose to intubate your son was a good idea? you know, you know, so that kind of stuff. And we had mercurochrome and Bactine. Remember mercurochrome? So you start with the truth, mercurochrome, and you go, okay, what's funny? Well, take the lid off, 17 flies fall from the sky. That's not a good thing. And then it was beet red. The color of it was beet red. So you could have a minor cut. By the time your mother got through slapping all the mercurochrome out of you, it looked like she did an autopsy on you. And then Bactine, my God, Bactine on a cut. A kid, to take my mind off the pain, she would stab me in the eye with an ice pick. So, so that's kind of a new one that I've been working on. So.
Right. So you're taking the truth, and then we're exaggerating it and taking it to the fullest extent. Another angle of comedy is connecting two unrelated thoughts together that shouldn't be connected, but that somehow make sense in our
Right.
weird pattern of mind. It's really fascinating. So let's get back to your life. So you drop out of high school, and then what happens?
I dropped out of high school. I dropped out of college. And it's funny.
College.
I've had nightmares where they took my diploma away from me. I mean, laying in bed, because somewhere deep in my psyche, I don't believe I deserved a diploma. I never did anything. I hung around. All I wanted to do was play baseball. That was it. And then when that stopped, I was kind of lost for a while. And then I got into.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Jeff, just you saying that you have nightmares about them coming and taking your diploma away just shows the level of shame that you live under every day of your life. And it's kind of the key to your comedy. Like when we would, Jeff and I would travel in a bus together. We would do like 38 cities in 33 nights. We'd do 10,000 miles on that. There'd be me and him and 6-7 other guys, meaning 2 other comics on the tour, but we'd have the road manager, the tour manager, the bus driver, the merch manager, and we're all in the bus. And Jeff every night would be the angry man in the back of the bus that just made me laugh.
Well,
There's something I relate to that, the frustration, but you verbalize it, and it's so fun. I mean, you're such a fun act to sit next to, and you're so good with your words, and you're quite a jokesmith. But just you saying that you in real life have dreams that they took your diploma away, that just made me laugh, because that's the exact Jeff I know.
well, and it's funny because they almost didn't give me my diploma, because apparently there was a book I was given. It might have been Brave New World. Anyway, I never read it, but apparently it was on my thing as never being returned. So they weren't going to give me my diploma until I paid the $1.97 for the book, And I had to get a job for a week so that I could pay off the $1.97.
Your parents weren't going to pay it?
They weren't rich. What do you think? I think they had that kind of money.
$1.97 is rich. Yes.
You think they had that kind
Well,
of
this
money?
is like 1970s or 80s.
Yeah, when you could buy a house for $7. Come on.
Well, how did you okay, so you go from this baseball dream and dropping out of college, how did the stand-up actually start for you then? I mean,
Actually,
you
before
always-
you even go there, let's find out where you went from
Okay,
there.
sorry.
Before we get, that's okay, Carl. Where'd you go from dropping out of college? Then what did you do? I mean,
Well, I had an aunt that married a guy that owned a large, well, a small by American standards, but a large wholesale jewelry house. Costume, they called it fashion. It was costume jewelry. And anyway, I started in there sweeping floors and whatever. And I eventually worked my way up to divisional manager. And I was starting to get groomed to take over a territory in Chicago from a 78-year-old guy who, very funny, High Pernick. I'll never forget his name, man. He was about 4'11". His sample cases were 5'4". So he'd carry these 2 sample cases on wheels under his pits, and he would drag them in, and he wasn't going to quit. And the owner kept going. He goes, "I'm just, you know,
We're losing you, Jeff. We're losing.
Wait, it didn't go. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, he was dragging these cases in under his. Anyway, I was being groomed for his territory, and I realized at some point he's not going to quit. He's going to have to die, and I didn't know if I wanted to pursue this for a career anyway. And anyway, I was at a jewelry show, and they talked about a comedy club, and I had seen a couple of comedians. Or my brother was a musician, and I was about 16, so this is 4 or 5 years ago, earlier, and I had seen some comics, and I thought, gosh, that would be great, but how do you learn to do that? Where do you learn to do stand-up comedy? So anyway, when they told me about this comedy club, that was August of '78, and I started going every night.
Wow.
I didn't have the courage to go up and do an open mic, but I was there every night of the week. And eventually Thanksgiving night, that's why I remember it was Thanksgiving night, I got trashed at my parents' house. I drove to the comedy club, and I put my name in for open mic. So now, every comic in the building was out to see me because they knew for 3 months I wanted to do this.
Yes.
And I did close-up magic through college, and I'd entertain at parties and things. But anyway, I brought magic up on stage, and I was so nervous. I was dropping things, dropping coins, anyway, it was Carl Ballantine without trying to be Carl Ballantine. So anyway, it was awful, awful, humiliated. I drove home, I punched holes, because that's how I handle humiliation. I punched holes in my closet wall and our door. And
Once
anyway,
again, back to the level of shame you live under.
Shame I live under. And then that was Thursday. So Sunday I was back, and I remember it was a black MC, Orlando Reyes, came over to me and said,
I know him.
oh yeah. So Orlando
Go ahead,
says,
go ahead.
yeah, he goes, "You're going to have to make sense tonight. We're still trying to figure out what you said Thursday night." Yeah, it wasn't pretty. So anyway,
I have a question then. Let's
that
hold on
started
right
my
there.
comedy
Yeah,
career.
hold on right there. What made you go back if the first
That's what
night
my
was
wife asked. That's what my wife asked me. She said, "Well, most people with that kind of, but I knew if I could get past the stage fright, I could do this."
okay?
And it took me a long time. It took me a long time. I mean, like a couple years, I had a club owner tell me in Chicago, "You'll never make a living at this."
Wow.
So work holiday ends, enjoy the hobby, but you got to start getting on with your adult life, And I said, thanks. And anybody who's ever made anything of their life has had some jerk in it tell them that they're not going to make anything of their life, and you're my jerk. So thank you. And he told
You said that to him?
yeah. And he said, F you. And that was kind of the end of working that particular club, but
You
it was
think?
also, it was a good thing. So I actually had to go out and find other work. And,
Yeah.
And right about then is when the comedy clubs exploded, 1980. And I was able to travel as an MC, doing 15, 20 minutes a night, 5-6 nights a week, 50 weeks a year. And I developed some craft, and I got better at what I did. And I worked my way up from MC to middle, and eventually headlining the comedy clubs. And that's when I met Tammy.
So you met you met your wife, and you got married, and you're now headlining the clubs, and but you definitely hit a rock bottom through substance abuse, and
Yeah.
fill us in on that.
Well, I married her in July of '86, and July of '87. It was July 5th, I think. I had a bender on the 4th, and I came home, and my son started crying. He was 6 months old. He was born in January, so 7 months maybe. And I was drunk and going through some issues, and he started crying, and I laid hands on him because he wouldn't cry. I started spanking him, and Tammy woke up. It's like 3 a.m. And Tammy took him away from me and sat on the end of the bed and actually fed him. And I realized at that point I could have killed my son. And it frightened me so bad. I told her, I said, if you don't take me to Alcoholics Anonymous, I won't go. And if I don't go, I don't think we're going to make it. And anyway, I went into the meeting the next day, and that kind of started me on a long process of recovery. You know, again, I have a head of brick, so it's like anyway, that was July 5th. So anyway, I had one more slip. September 28th, I was in Memphis, and an old Coke buddy of mine showed up with a bunch of cocaine, and we went out and binged. And a very funny story. At 2 a.m, I'm in front of Graceland, you know, Elvis's house, screaming for the king. It's like, hey, we want to see the king. You know, and finally some guard comes out. He says, look, we know you love him, man, but you got to come back when we're open. I go, no, I was just hoping he left a little Valium under the bushes, because I am trash. So anyway, he threatened to arrest us. And anyway, I got back to my room, and here's a cool story. I had met a guy in the program about a month and a half earlier, one of the nicest guys I'd ever met. And I knew his story. He was worth millions of dollars and blew it all on cocaine, blew it all.
Wow.
He got to a point where he was living in his apartment, apartment, and he was getting his drugs delivered, his food delivered. And trust me, this is long before DoorDash. I mean, he was paying for people to just, so he basically went through his entire fortune in a couple of years in his hotel room or apartment. And anyway, when I met him, he was probably one of the happiest people I'd ever met. And I knew his story. He never told me his story. Somebody else told me it. So I wanted what he had. It was an attraction, you know, and that's what they talk about. A 12-step program should be an attraction, not a promotion. You are the calling card for the program. So anyway, he gave me his number. He said, look, if you ever find yourself in dire straits, give me a call. And I stuck it in my wallet and never thought about him again. So 6 weeks later, I'm in Memphis. I'm trashed. I got cocaine. I don't want to do this anymore. I know this is bad. So I'm chopping up the cocaine to do a line, and his number falls off my driver's license.
Wow.
Falls into the Coke. So I'm looking at the number and I'm looking at the Coke. Anyway, I call him up. It's like 3 a.m. now. He's in Boston. And anyway, he said, if you're serious, you'll flush whatever cocaine you got left. I said, I got about 1 gram, man. Maybe, I don't know. And he says, well, you'll flush it if you're serious. So I went to the bathroom and I flushed it. I came back and he said, did you flush it? I said, yeah. He goes, really? You're the first. I said, yeah, I'm sick and tired of this, man. I don't want to do this anymore. So anyway, I've been sober for 34 years now, since September 29th.
Yay.
So,
Yeah.
Good job.
Your next step, though, Jeff, is I know that you were just kind of seeking, you started reading a lot of philosophers and a lot of things. Was that through 12-step? And
well, I don't know. It was through 12-step. Everything back then was self-help back in the 80s. And I'm sure it's now. I mean, again, I work churches, and I always tell them, if you walk into any bookstore, if they're around, Barnes and Nobles, but you can see thousands of books, tens of thousands of books of man's attempt to find meaning apart from God. So I was part of that. I didn't believe in God. So I felt if there's something wrong with me, then like an owner's manual for an automobile, there must be something to fix me. And it was psychological. I was a full of rage and anger at the time.
you?
So,
No.
yeah, I know. It's a shock. I know. And over nothing. Tammy used to look at me and she'd go, how do you go from a 0 to 1,000? I don't know. I just got talent. That's all. Some people. Tammy used to say my rage. It was funny when I started acting classes. I told the teacher, I said, look, you don't have to give me any scenes with anger in them. I said, I can handle that. Tenderness, empathy, those things, emotions like that,
Yeah.
apathy, apathy I'm good at too.
Yeah.
So anyway.
You started reading things like Ayn Rand and
Well,
different-
that was at the end of the journey. I started with John Bradshaw stuff on family dynamics. I read a few of his books. Melanie Beatty stuff. Codependency was huge back then. Everybody was reading about that. And then I got into the best book I read back then was Road Less Traveled, Scott Peck's seminal work. That's a great book. And a couple of things I took from that were really helped me in my marriage. One of them was life is difficult when it can be accepted as such and no longer becomes difficult. It's just a series of problems that need to be solved. So I kind of looked at it and thought, okay, well, that makes sense pragmatically, that there's problems in life. And if I had the right tools to solve them, I'd be better at it. So, okay, that makes sense. And the other one was true love. Genuine love doesn't begin in a relationship until conflict enters the relationship.
Oh, wow.
There's no such thing as a loving, conflict-free relationship. It doesn't exist. And that resonated with me because prior to getting married, every relationship I ever had, when conflict entered, I left, I fled. So at that point, I was married a year and a half or 2 years. And I realized that I wanted to flee. I wanted to get out of this marriage. I wanted to get away from her because it was so discomforting to stick around, and I never had before. So it was kind of just this maturation process of moving into adulthood. I laugh when I hear about these people mocking, millennials for adulting in their 30s. I was 32 years old and I started adulting. I mean, really, I was out making a living. I was paying my own way, but I had no idea how to behave as a father and as a husband and in a relationship. I never had one that lasted more than a week. So it was a process. So I went through all the self-help. Then I got into Buddhism, a New Age. New Age was big. The whole higher power thing, I again, if I'd have walked into AA and they said, you need Jesus, I'd have left. I'd have walked out. So it was a perfect place for me to be. And God made a path for me to find or seek him. And eventually I wound up on Ayn Rand, humanism, because everything else had fallen apart. We were getting a divorce. And again, you look at what the world gives you as a checklist. I had a perfect life. I had a beautiful wife who loved me. I had healthy kids. I had a job I loved. Check the boxes. And I was just absolutely upside down miserable, and I didn't know why. And my favorite story at that time was I got fixated on my son's gerbil for a while. And Tammy came in one day and says, "What's with you and the gerbil?" I said, "Look at it." She goes, "So what?" I go, "It gets sticks on one side of the crate and brings them over to the other side and stacks them up. And then when they're done stacking, he moves them back over, stacks them up. And every now and then he spins the wheel for a little entertainment." She goes, "So what?" I go, "That's our life. If I project 10, 15, 20 years from now, that, I get sticks. I buy things, and eventually we take them to the landfill. We buy more things, they go to the landfill. If I'm lucky, I get a sitcom or movie deal. I make a lot of money, but there's still stuff that we're buying that winds up in the landfill. And every now and then we take the kids to Disneyland or we go to Vegas for entertainment. That's our wheel." And I looked at her and I said, if this is my life for the next 20 years, just getting sticks, I'm checking out. And Tammy looked at me and said, "You checked out years ago, pal. You haven't been here since we got married."
Wow.
And I sitting now, looking back, we were both broken people. Otherwise, a healthy woman wouldn't have stayed with me.
Right.
She wouldn't have married me in the first place. But Tammy even said that. She goes, "Who I am today would not be with you, with who you were then.
So
I wouldn't allow it."
we got to button this up, but you ended up staying with her. You were on your way to get divorced. You guys stopped the car, decided to stay together. You're still married. And the whole thing is that Christ ended up answering all those big questions you had over the years. And
just meaning, origin, meaning, purpose, morality. It's and again, every belief system has to answer those four basics. Where did I come from, and how does that infuse meaning in my life? And how does that give me a moral compass, and destiny? Where am I going? So
yeah.
I didn't.
I know where you're going. I actually know where you're going, Jeff. You're going to the Grove Comedy Club in Lowell, Arkansas on October 28th to the 30th. And by the way, do yourself a favor, buy some tickets and get out to this show. Carl, you're in Arkansas right now. You should get out and see that.
I'm going to go.
Carl's got a girlfriend now. This could be big. This could be big. Take her to the show.
Date night, baby.
Honestly, I've worked with thousands of comics. You're in my top 3 all time, Jeffy. Love you, man.
I love you
Miss
too,
you.
Ron.
Thank you
you,
for
man.
doing your show.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thanks.
having
Appreciate
me.
it.
And so folks, we got to wrap it up. Thanks again to KBF 88.3 FM for giving us a home. And next episode will be Paul Rodriguez. Thanks again to Jeff Allen.
Woo!
All
Appreciate
right,
it, Jeff.
till next time. This has been Dream Up.